Welcome to Talk Commerce today. Today I have Russell Griffen from ShipStation. Shipohi, I think, is what his email says, and I believe that's shipping to Hawaii, right, or something like that, or is it shipping Ohio?
No, it's actually Ojai. So the company that I work for is called Ojai Technologies, and Ojai is a Hawaiian word that means to pick up. So our founder, when he first started the company a couple of years ago, I think he fell in love with the word and the idea. He's actually from Great Britain, and so he thought that he was going to be able to create like a pickup in store, kind of pickup at locker type service, like is very common in the UK and in Europe and the US, which hasn't quite as much as he thought it would. And so as he developed the service, he realized that instant commerce, which is what we do today, which is 2-hour same-day delivery for direct-to-consumer brands, was the way to go. And so he stuck with the Ojai name, and here we are today.
Excellent. All right. Well, you've sort of given your introduction, but Russell, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us your role and kind of what you do day to day, and give us one of your passions in life as well.
Sure. So I am Russell Griffen. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Ojai. I am previously with ShipStation. I was with ShipStation for about 5 years as their sales leader, sales and marketing leader, and then previously with BigCommerce. For many years as their enterprise sales and agency partnership leader. So my responsibilities at Ojai include new sales, account management, strategic partnerships, and support. Passion. So I have a couple of boys, and they both grew up playing a sport called lacrosse. You might be familiar with it, given where you're from, Brent. Other parts of the country, not as much. But in Texas, we started playing it a few years ago, and my kids both really started to play it and loved it. And so I took over as the head of the youth and high school lacrosse organization, which is in Texas is important because it's all parent funded. So I spend a lot of my time making sure my kids and the kids that play lacrosse have fields and gear and coaches and all that good stuff so they can play a sport.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you. That's excellent. And I didn't mean to say you were with ShipStation now, so I apologize for the intro part of it. Anyways, right now I'm in Fargo, which is even farther north than Minnesota. But yes, lacrosse is big. Of course, hockey is king. But any of those sports, and I applaud you for doing that. So today we are going to talk about shipping and fulfillment. What do you think is the number one challenge right now for a merchant in terms of getting something from A to Z, or even getting something from out of their warehouse to the customer's front door?
Well, I mean, there are so many challenges. Right now, the interesting thing that we're seeing, unfortunately, is inventory constraints, which isn't really like a from a warehouse to a door issue. It's more of how do I get enough of what I sell into the right places and close enough to my core customers to get it there efficiently and effectively, right? And maintain enough inventory so that I don't run out and, I wind up having to close my online store for certain SKUs that are fast movers versus the other ones that maybe sit in the warehouse longer. So, the stats or the numbers that are coming out of the ports in terms of like the backed up inventory because of the lack of dock workers and other things to unload is really quite staggering right now. I think all of us on the fulfillment side and as I speak to operations directors at companies large and small, their biggest concern is what happens as the volume ramps up for Christmas. The inventory constraints become even more acute. Will these things kind of resolve as, the current experience that we're living in hopefully abates even more. But right now I would say that the inventory concerns are the number one thing I hear. How do we get the right amount of inventory, the right SKUs, in the right locations and keep it there so that, and get more and plan for more because things are constantly changing Even in terms of like transport, right? Shortage of workers on the transport side causing issues. It's just kind of endemic right now. It's that movement of inventory and the keeping of the inventory supply chain moving, I think, is one of the biggest issues that we face that is kind of new and kind of generated by, unfortunately from the pandemic, and will hopefully, again, abate as the pandemic does, and things settle down from hopefully what we will see as the last wave of Delta. But right now, like dock times in LA are out of control. So that's probably the biggest concern.
Yeah, actually, just heard an article yesterday about how the containers are coming to the U.S. full, and sometimes instead of shipping those containers inland, they're just shipping them right back to China empty. And the soybean industry, which is big in the North or in the Midwest, is being affected because they're not always getting a chance to fill up those containers. The shipping companies are deciding it's easier and cheaper to send them right back to China without waiting to ship them inland to get them filled up and shipping them all the way back out. They need those that quickly. So I can understand all those constraints, and I think as a merchant, you feel out of control, and you feel like you can't do anything about that. What are you thinking, or what are you seeing that merchants are using to get around some of those things right now?
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons that, OHI is an interesting option for people, or other same day, like marketplace fulfillment type solutions like Dark Store, GoPuff, on the like snacks and beverages side, like trying to get your inventory into locations where it's moving quickly, is one option. And then, really they don't have a lot of control. So, trying to plan as far ahead as possible for inventory requirements is becoming more important. So, turning up the operational efficiency inside of, fast-growing e-commerce companies is not always the easiest thing to do. There's already operational constraints. There's limited budgets. There are, but especially in a fast-growing e-commerce business where, things are potentially doubling, if not more, on a monthly basis as their brand catches on. Getting really good operationally and having good partners to help you is critical. So, again, like you mentioned, the containers in LA right now, it's 60 days to unload a container. They have like 60 days lagging of, they have boats floating in the ocean right now waiting to dock and unload, and they've been there for weeks. So there's not much you can do about that other than, pivot a little bit, plan a little bit further ahead, especially for the holiday season. And if you have SKUs that move faster than others, make sure that you're planning your orders accordingly. It's probably better right now to over order rather than try to, look historically to make sure that you have enough just in case, because chances are once you get it, you're not getting a lot more real fast.
Do you think some of the merchants that looked at, some of the merchants that were not online and then had to pivot quickly because of COVID, so they were able to do that? But I think there's lots of merchants with multiple stores that could be using some of that for their either warehousing or ship from your location or order online, ship from location. Do you think that's happening a lot more nowadays?
Yeah, and it's critical. I mean, you've got to be able to, if you're a brick and mortar that now has e-commerce presence, you really need to be able to use that as an online inventory location. And I am seeing it more. It's one of the things that OHI enables. We have several merchants that actually use our platform for same-day pickup in store and or same-day delivery from store. Now, what's interesting about it is the logistics of that are more complicated than it seems, right? So if you have a network of brick and mortar and you're trying to either deliver from your store or have people come in to pick up, you've got to train employees. You've got to hourly retail employees on processes and procedures. You've got to sometimes pick and pack things, which isn't necessarily the most easy thing to do. It doesn't sound hard, but if it's not done right, it can create a bad customer experience, or it just doesn't get done at all, and somebody shows up and there's nothing there for them, which obviously creates a bad customer experience. So thinking through that is really critical, and not just taking for granted that you can just kind of start this up and do it. You've got to pick the right technology for it. You've got to train your employees, and you've got to plan for it a little bit. But I mean, we have a fairly major brand that actually does same-day deliveries using our platform out of their brick and mortars, and they're clicks to bricks. So they started out online, so they're opening up stores now, and they're having success. But it definitely was a learning experience for them, where we had to do some training and some operational preparedness for them that they didn't really anticipate. So you absolutely want to plan for that, and I think it's critical, especially as especially with like LTL trucking as it's not terrible, but it's less reliable than it used to be in terms of like on-time deliveries and being able to staff and get the trucks out. It is definitely much more tricky nowadays. So being able to leverage back to your stores for inventory locations, for shipment, and even for in-store pickup is critical.
So not to give us a sales pitch, but maybe a solution pitch on Shipohi. Tell us how the average merchant, let's just say they have 2 locations and 1 warehouse, and then their big website presence, how your solution is going to help them weather some of these storms.
So I'll back up a step and just tell you how Ohi goes to market. I think that will help. So there's a new approach to warehousing. It's called micro fulfillment centers. It's a couple years old, and I think that's a critical kind of secret sauce into what we do. So we're locating the inventory closer to where your customers are. For example, we have a micro warehouse on 38th and 8th in Manhattan. And so we're actually fulfilling orders from the city center out, rather than from outside the city in, like most warehouses are. Or the warehouse is sitting outside the city center because that real estate is cheap, and then they're shipping all over the country. And so we've got micro fulfillment centers in New York, in Chicago, in San Francisco, in LA. We've got Dallas coming online fairly soon, Seattle, Philadelphia, and DC. So as we build out this micro fulfillment system, you are able to locate your inventory closer to the customer and therefore get it to the customer faster, whether that's a same day or 2-hour rush delivery service that we offer, or you're just doing it overnight. So not only is it faster, it's also less expensive. So we've lowered the cost of like a 2-hour same day to be very palatable and to allow for that like customer delight experience to happen. And really what we're doing is we're allowing direct to consumer brands to provide that to their customer as part of the checkout process on whatever platform they're using, to get a 2-hour or same day delivery window, or schedule a delivery window. So if for example, somebody's doing a subscription service, and this is something that we've commonly seen and we built a solution for, if you have a subscription service and people are subscribed and then they go out of town and then you're delivering, a case of Health Aid, you really don't want that Health Aid sitting on the porch for 3 days, right? It's a beverage. It's going to sit there. It's going to get warm. It's going to go bad. So we've got a technology that allows you to schedule within 7-day windows, 2-hour delivery times, and really get more granular on when that product gets there. And so therefore raising your subscription retention, because what we've seen firsthand is that when subscriptions get delivered or misdelivered or come when somebody's not expecting it, they tend to cancel the subscription. Between the micro fulfillment and getting the inventory closer to the customers, your customers, and giving some more flexibility in the shipment process, those are 2 ways that we're helping merchants solve some of these problems. The other thing that we're doing is that we're providing hub locations for inventory. So you can do like large truckload shipments to us. We will store the inventory for you, and then we will manage the transport of that inventory into those micro fulfillment centers ourselves based on SKU velocity. So we know what allocation needs to be in our micro facilities, and all you need to do is just get the inventory for it to us and forget about it. So we're helping take some of that complexity out of getting like this like instant commerce delivery service out to really direct to consumer companies that are wanting to grow that portion of their business. Because as you're very well aware and everybody knows, like there's so many different solutions now to buy someone's product. You can go to Amazon, you can go to GoPuff, you can go to Dark Store, you can go to Fast AF. Like there's, you can go to Walmart, you can go to Target. Like there's all these offerings. And if you want to compete as a direct consumer brand, even with yourself, if you're selling through other channels, you need to have these types of fulfillment solutions as an offering, or people will just find it somewhere else and cost you even more money in the fees that you pay to these other vendors in shipping out your inventory.
Would you say then that one of your main competitors would be fulfilled by Amazon?
Sure.
Are you doing this whole chain? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think fulfilled by Amazon and like Amazon's, they have a same day service now for, that they're expanding. I would argue that that's complementary in some ways. In some ways it's competitive. So again, there is already a built out network of third party marketplaces that, they have spent a lot of money and a lot of time figuring out how to get products to people fast. Right. And they've got warehouses and they've got deep pockets and, they're willing to lose a little to, for market share. And that's been going on for a while. What we're doing is we're trying to take that same model and we're putting it in the hands of the brands themselves and saying, we're going to be your service delivery partner that allows you to say, I can operate at a high efficiency level. And in these locations, I can get product into somebody's hands within 2 hours or, 8 hours, depending on the service that you want. And I can do it efficiently over and over again at scale. And so I can still put my products out into marketplace distribution with Amazon and all these other places where people expect to get them fast and accurately and every time. But I can also offer that same service on my website as people are checking out. So instead of spending money on driving somebody to my site to say, wow, I really like that. I wonder if they have it on Amazon. You say, wow, I really like that. I'm going to check out. I'm going to get it in 2 hours and I'm going to be, super excited. I'm going to keep buying from these guys. That's really the vision that I have for what we do. But that doesn't mean that a merchant shouldn't also look at those other strategies. They should be in FBA if that's part of their strategy. They should be, looking at a Target or a Walmart if their product fits in that kind of drop ship scenario. They should be, looking at a dark store or the Fast AF or GoPuff model if that makes sense for them. But you really need to be developing all those channels right now to be as successful as possible, especially as your brand grows. And we're seeing that. Like, JuneShine is a good example. It's one of our customers. We work with them. They started with us. They kind of went viral and started to grow very quickly. They're a kombucha wine brand. And before you knew it, they were in distribution. They were doing, other things that alcohol companies do to get out into stores. And it was additive. It did not take away from what they were doing online.
Did you say kombucha wine?
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
Well, they're a kombucha brand, but they're classified as a wine.
Ah, okay. So alcoholic kombucha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
You should check it out.
Okay. Yeah. So really, we're helping merchants to get as many different choices as possible out to fulfill and help the customer get or have a good experience. I can say from my own experience, I am sometimes hesitant to go with a relatively unknown brand and then choose their shipping and hopefully get it in. Sometimes they'll tell you, we'll get it to you in a week. Sometimes they don't tell you when they're going to get it to you. And I think that what Prime shipping has done to the shipping market is people now expect 2 days for free. And some people will pay 2 days for X. But I think it's even worse if you're kind of hoping to get it, 2 days and suddenly it doesn't come for a week.
Right.
So it sounds like part of what you're doing is helping to get those shipping locations closer to where actually people are, and then you're able to fulfill it faster.
That's right. I mean, it's the same thing that Amazon's done. They just do it in more traditional warehouse, with a more traditional warehouse approach. I mean, we've got a giant Amazon warehouse right outside the city in Austin that serves our area, and they do some same day shipping. It's kind of interesting because what I've noticed when I order from Amazon, being in the Austin area, is that sometimes I get it like way faster than I expect it. Right? I rarely get it longer, and they do a good job of updating me through the process. So the expectations, and we've been talking about this for a while in e-commerce, are being set by Amazon, and everybody else is just scrambling to keep up. And I see a number of fairly poorly constructed checkout experiences, which is interesting because all the research shows that conversion happens at the point of picking shipping, and that the biggest drop off is if you don't have the right shipping options for people. And so, it stands to reason that the better shipping option you have, and the more confident, first of all, it's got to be the right price point to some degree. I've seen research from certain folks that says like it's fast, but it doesn't have to be free, or slow and free. And I don't know that that's true. I think it's becoming like cheap or free. For everything. And that, again, that's being driven by Amazon pricing, right? And how Amazon does it. So, one of the things that we're able to do by getting the inventory into closer locations is to lower that cost, allow merchants to run promotions and be able to legitimately offer free or very low cost same day delivery. And so people are more likely to check out. They're about, right now across all of our brands, they're about 30% more likely to repeat purchase. So your repeat purchase goes through the roof when you use our services, or services like this, because they now have confidence that if they order, they're going to get it fast and it's going to come. And you're 100% right. Like I always relate these things to my own shopping experiences online, and how I feel about them, because, I do quite a bit of online shopping. And if I'm checking out, this has happened to me recently. I was checking out on a very custom item that I was looking for somebody's birthday. And I got to the checkout and they had just the worst shipping options. And I'm like, I wonder if these guys are on Amazon. Looked them up, Prime, boom, 2 days later had it. Now, how much did that cost the merchant? I mean, it's very expensive. You just advertised to me, got me to your website, took me through the cart, and then lost me to Amazon, who's charging you money to store their products and ship it for you. So wouldn't it be much better if I could have just said, same day, I can actually get this birthday present today for $6, done. And my propensity to check out there is going to be just infinitely higher. And I've walked through some checkout processes recently with some companies, and I'm shocked that anybody ever checks out. I've seen $120 same day for a $20 item displayed. I'm just like, what do you And these are the things that consumer direct to consumer brands really have to think about, and it's look, these are entrepreneurs that are have fast growing businesses, and it's hard to keep track of everything that you need to do. And sometimes you're just growing through word of mouth and volume, and everybody's picking that $5 UPS third day option, and you don't even realize if you had something better and something cleaner on the checkout that your conversion could double and you could be growing even faster.
Yeah, my advice to all merchants is, number one, test. See where people are dropping out. There's so many tools out there. No matter what e-commerce platform you are using, test that process. If you see a lot of traffic and then suddenly they're stopping in the cart, figure out why are they stopping in the cart. If they've registered and then they go to the cart, see why they dropped out. If they registered and they dropped out, contact them. Use your cart abandonment. There's so many things that merchants miss out on, and you're exactly right. It seems like the smaller the merchant, the less they worry about that part of the process. And that part of the process, I can't stress for any merchant, is the most important part. I have a great experience that I just saw an advertisement for some kind of gel thing, you're using for running and I said, they have a sale. So I clicked on the sale, and I'm pretty sure I clicked on Facebook. So they had to pay for that ad on Facebook. And now I'm also going to get inundated with all these ads. So I'm a little bit depressed that I've clicked on the ad. But regardless of that, I clicked through the ad. I got through I actually registered because they wouldn't give me a shipping quote until I registered. And I got all the way through the cart, and then they wanted $8 for shipping. And I'm like, wow, like the whole thing, they wanted a third of the cost of the everything for shipping. And honestly, if it was $24 with shipping, I would have paid if they would have said free shipping and it was $24, I would have finished checking out. I wouldn't have thought a second about it. And this is a bigger company. This is not even a small company. So I think everybody has to analyze that. And I can't stress more that people should be checking and testing and reanalyzing and A/B testing their checkout process all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it really depends on how serious you are about, an online sale versus, driving somebody to buy it in the store. Because bigger brands might, say they want people to check out, and then, really ultimately because of whatever reason, they really want people to, go into the store and buy it. But if you're not rationalizing the price people are willing to pay for shipping for your product with what they're doing in the checkout process, you're missing a huge conversion lever. And the bottom line is expensive. Like the biggest cost for an online business is shipping. Like that's where that's what operational costs. That's where all their margins and everything. That's where it can start to break down if you're not doing the right things. So I understand why companies want to cover their costs there. But at the same time, and so, there's a balance. There's like trying to figure out what the right cost for the item is that will get people to convert on the site with the right shipping options. It's, as you said, it's a constant test and measure type exercise. What I see ubiquitously right now is that pretty much every website I go to says free shipping over a certain amount of purchase, right? And that seems to be working, but it's also kind of simplistic. It's easy. It's not, you need to think through that maybe even more, and really, like you said, look at the data that's coming through the other end because it's available, and figuring out, is that working? Is that, how much is that costing me? Can I lower the price a little bit of free shipping? If I'm offering free shipping through UPS third day, is it really actually getting there in third day? Am I having customer satisfaction issues with that? Especially if you're like doing subscription orders and everything's coming like through FedEx or UPS. You want to retain those subscriptions, not lose them because people are having bad experiences, not getting your product not when they expect them, or whatever it might be. And we see this a lot on the subscription side, because there is really just like today there's very little control over when it actually arrives on a subscription, other than that renewal date when the order hits in the system. And then the shipping process is started.
Yeah. So going back to Shipohi, what are you seeing for integrations with other platforms? How would a merchant get started?
So we've got a pretty open set of APIs. We integrate seamlessly with Shopify. We have Magento customers. We have a big BigCommerce customer that's coming online. We're about to launch our Shopify app. And I think the fast follow for that will be either BigCommerce or Magento, if not both, in fairly rapid succession. And then we have custom platforms that have tied into us. So custom engineered platforms for some mid-sized brands that we've had to develop our order logic to accommodate. So for your standard SaaS platforms, it's pretty easy. For your custom platforms, there's a little bit more work, and sometimes there's work on the customer side, the client side to do. But we've actually found it only to be a few weeks worth of work, and we've got a couple of fairly decent sized customers up with custom platforms as well. So and then we play well in the sandbox, as it were, with other fulfillment. So if you've got a 3PL that you're doing your standard shipping from, we set up the order logic to make sure we're pulling the right orders and we're not double fulfilling. We decrement inventory from whatever system of record you're using on the inventory side, whether that be your platform or a third party. All the things that you need to do to run a smooth operation, we've figured out and made it pretty easy to get set up. That's critical right now. Like The one thing that I've seen, when I started at Big Commerce years ago now, was just the rapid progression of integration ease in the e-commerce space, which has made it easier for merchants to grow and take advantage of more advanced technology. For example, at ShipStation, we did a NetSuite integration that was really nice and really helped a lot of merchants be able to step out of the QuickBooks, into a more robust ERP and still maintain the same shipping excellence that they had, because they really liked using ShipStation and it really helped their operational excellence, and it helped them succeed. And to be able to marry those two technologies together and bring that solution to people was really important. And I think the same thing exists here, where we've got to, we're working with Recharge and CartHook and other technologies to build like these seamless integrations where all of this can happen. Like somebody can use this, check out with a subscription and use our scheduled delivery, or somebody can do a post-purchase with CartHook, add a product, and it goes back into their shopping cart, and we bring it out same day. All those things are happening as we build solutions for merchants to grow their business.
Yeah, it's good. You mentioned Hawaii earlier. How does that fit in for merchants that I'm assuming most merchants target the 48 states for their free shipping? How have you seen people kind of try to loop in Hawaii? And I guess what I'm more interested in, if you're a merchant in Hawaii, how do you compete against the rest of the country?
Oh man, that's a great question, and I don't know that I have a great answer. Having been to Hawaii a few times, I will tell you that things on that island are pretty self-contained. They have, and it's expensive to get things there, so everything's more expensive when you go to Hawaii. If you're buying off the shelf items, for sure, and I've worked with a couple of Hawaiian merchants, and a lot of times what they do is they end up with like a US-based fulfillment provider pretty quickly, because they've got to get their inventory from the islands onto the mainland, or it's just too expensive for them to operate. So really it's finding the right partnerships, and if you're everything's driven by customer demand, and as much as I love Hawaii, and I do, it's not a very big market. So, it depends on how many orders you're getting. If you're seeing enough orders come in from Hawaii, or you have some product that appeals to that state for some reason, then, you really want to figure out with your carrier what options you have to get products there accurately, number one, but also maybe less expensively. And some carriers have some options into Hawaii. I mean, they try to treat it like any other state, but they can't always do that. I mean, Alaska's in the same boat. People forget about poor Alaska. Anchorage is a pretty big market, and it's growing. And again, I've been to Anchorage a few times, and one of the ways they solve that problem is just to import goods, and they're more expensive. The other way is they have a lot of their own homegrown things there that they that are kind of local. They're much more local focused than many of us are in other cities in the contiguous. That is also very true in Hawaii. So they kind of build their own solutions there. And I bought a few things from Alaska, and it's expensive to get it. I mean, it just costs more money.
Yeah, I guess it's expensive to make hockey sticks in Hawaii as well. So there's probably not a big market for that. Bigger in Alaska. Yeah. How about international? You mentioned Alaska. They can get things from Canada. It's just cross border at that point, but are you working at all, say in Mexico, trying to get things from the U.S. to Mexico?
Not yet. We will be. I think the idea of the micro warehouse is the good news on those is once you find a location, it's not as complicated to get it up and running as it is, say, like a major warehouse, a 3PL size warehouse or larger. And we have a model that's very easy to replicate and train on. So international expansion will come. I'm fascinated by some of the things that are going on with Mercado Libre with BigCommerce and ShipStation and some of the partnerships that are starting to form. I think it's going to be really cool, and those are big markets to access. Mexico and South America, and they've typically been kind of closed off from North American trade because it's mainly because of logistics. Logistics in those countries is a little bit more tricky than it is in the U.S., for example. So the fact that Mercado Libre kind of like runs it all, is going to help, I think, allow U.S. Merchants to get into South American and Central American markets and vice versa. I think it'll work both ways, although they've had a little bit less trouble getting here than we've had getting there. So I'm hopeful. I'm really, I was transitioning out of ShipStation, they were working on that Mercado Libre partnership, and I really was excited about it for them. I think that's a great thing for everyone. And then I noticed that BigCommerce launched something recently as well. And so, partnerships like that, I think, are going to be really cool to unlocking those markets and helping, the Americas and trade with each other more freely, which I think is a good thing for everyone personally. And doing it more digitally than ever before. And I anticipate we'll be in, a Mexico City or a Buenos Aires, within the next couple of years as we expand.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more opportunities for Mexican merchants to move into the U.S. Just because I think what we're talking about, the U.S. market is much more mature in terms of shipping and payment. So we're also a partner with Mercado Libre / Mercado Pago. And for those listeners who don't know, Mercado Libre is like the eBay of Latin America. They're huge. They're huge in terms of a marketplace, and they also have a payment, which is Mercado Pago. And that is sort of the benchmark of what people had traditionally looked at when trying to sell something, or in a marketplace trying to sell something. But I think then that merchants look at the U.S. and they look at partners like Shipohi or ShipStation or all these other. The partner network is much more mature in the U.S. and I think it's easier for a merchant to come north than it is for us as Americans to go south, and especially trying to understand how difficult the payment system is and how difficult and expensive it is to ship things, even within Mexico. The idea of free shipping, I know that Amazon is pushing that in Mexico. There's Amazon Prime for Mexico, but it's and the products are more expensive because they build that into the cost. But merchants aren't looking at that at all, I think, in Mexico right now. I think that merchants in Mexico are still just hoping their product gets to the consumer sometimes.
Yeah, especially in Central America and South America, where infrastructure is less reliable. That's part of the issue. But the cool thing about Mercado Libre in those markets that it serves, and it's huge. I mean, it does the logistics, it does the delivery, and it knows how to operate and get products out the door and to people's, I'm going to say door twice, to people's doors from the warehouses that they operate. So, I was carrier operations in Central Mexico, Central and South America, like with UPS and FedEx, are dicey at best and unreliable. I'm sure Amazon's going to do a fine job because they're, ninjas at getting this done. But Mercado Libre's got it solved, right? And so partnership with those guys to get products from North America into those markets, I think, is a really great way to go. And you're right. I do think you'll see more, and I think you have seen more, like in from Central or Mexico, Central and South America into the U.S. Obviously because we have a big consumer, we have an appetite for products, and so it's easier to sell here.
Yeah, and I from experience talking about logistics, I was on site in Mexico City talking to a customer who was they manufactured the bottles that you put shampoo in and things like that. They had a specific manufacturing line, but sometimes it was more expensive for them to ship containers north, going by truck across the border into LA, than it was for bigger companies to buy them directly from China. because of the logistics, the lack of rail network, everything goes by truck, and especially if you're all the way down south in southern Mexico, getting those materials up, sometimes it's cheaper to get them all the way over to the West Coast into a boat and then up to Los Angeles. So I think we don't understand sometimes as Americans the logistical problems that happen within the South American countries. And I should note that Mexico is part of North America, and they do get offended if we say America. We're not America. We're all Americans. I don't want to offend anybody.
North Americans, and then there's the Canadians really don't like it when we say America. They get very upset about that.
Right. Yeah, Canadians they're in a different league.
Well, yeah. So I mean, infrastructure issue, and I think it's a good point, and people don't think about this. Like, water is the cheapest way to transport goods. It's one of the reasons that America, that the United States of America, has been able to grow like it has, because we have really, really good waterways. Like the Mississippi River is really important for us. People don't think about it, but the transport of goods on the Mississippi River is how this country was built. Central Mexico, Central America, and South America don't have that same kind of infrastructure advantages. And you're right, it can be more expensive. But back to Mercado Libre, like I'm really impressed with what I saw some of their operations and talked to some of their folks, and that's a cool company that I was really impressed with.
Yeah, and just to be more impressed with Minnesota, we're the end of two very inland shipping ports. Number one, the end of the Mississippi shipping, and then the Atlantic Ocean shipping. We have the farthest inland port, and we get 1,000 foot boats coming into the harbor. So anywhere in the world. What? And I know that Duluth, where the shipping port is, didn't upgrade fast enough for their container shipping, but they do get all those big windmills. All the turbines come in from the Netherlands into the port of Duluth, and they're trucked across the northern part of the U.S. Anyways, so we have about 10 minutes left. What are you doing? What are you reading nowadays to kind of keep yourself up with commerce and fulfillment and things like that? What are you reading? What are you listening to kind of keep yourself up to speed?
Transparently, as the sales leader for Ojai, I am talking to so many merchants on a regular basis that's what keeps me up to speed more than anything. Is actually talking to people who are doing it. I enjoy reading. One of the most recent books I read was called Blitzscaling, which is a really cool book about growing a startup business that I got some nuggets from. But I've always been somebody who is more interested in practice and looking at what's actually happening on the ground than reading about it in a book or online, or even some of the articles that I read when I look at some of the publications that are out there for e-commerce, or just LinkedIn articles that I'm looking at. I mean, I'm always scanning LinkedIn for things. I think that's a really good source for me, just like in real time to see like what's going on and what people are talking about. Doesn't always match what I'm hearing and the problems that I'm seeing like on the ground with merchants. And so, what's most important for me, especially as a sales leader and somebody who's also involved in operations and support, is to understand what the real issues that merchants are facing from talking to them and asking questions and trying to solve them in real time. And there's no better source of information to talking to the people who are doing it, because I'm two things when I talk to an entrepreneurial person who's growing their online business. I'm envious and I'm fascinated. I'm envious because I wish I was the one that was doing it. I was the one that I had the gumption, the get up and go, the risk tolerance to go make it happen. And I'm fascinated to learn how they're doing it, because everybody's got a little bit different thing that they anchor on. Like we have clients that are really, really, very focused on after purchase texts. Like what messaging am I sending them after they buy? Like, how do I engage them? And then we have people who are very focused on the checkout. Like, how does my checkout look? How does it feel? And then we have people who are very focused on their product pages and merchandising. So it's it's just all over the place, and different things work for different people. And I'm very, very interested in hearing from founders and from the employees of companies that are growing fast, that have caught traction, that have seen, 100% increases in sales within a 3 to 4 month window, just to find out how they did it. Like, what was it? Luck? Was it timing? Was it a little bit of both? Like, was it messaging? Like, what do you think the reason that you won is? Because you'll get some nuggets out of that. I'm very much a scanner of information from the LinkedIn network, and because that's another place where I feel like people will in real time kind of put down what's going on with their businesses, what's happening, what's the latest and greatest, what did they just learn, and that's really the best way, because a lot of times you'll read publications or books or even online things that are if they're 2 months old in e-commerce, sometimes that's just old information. It doesn't even work anymore. Or, you've seen 3 merchants that tried it and it didn't work. I mean, it's kind of amazing how fast things go still. When I think about this, I figure we're really only 8 to 10 years into the age of e-commerce, the way that we know it today. And that's not very old. Like that's a baby. It's still, we're still toddlers, and the pace with which integrations to platforms have grown, and new products have emerged, and it's become more user-friendly, and smaller merchants have been able to use more important and impactful tools that used to be reserved for the giant companies that were doing online commerce, like Nordstrom or some of these other, big smart companies that have figured out e-commerce as part of a larger organization, has just been amazing to me. And so you really kind of have to stay up to it in real time and talk to people and talk to merchants and, talk to companies of all sizes that are doing this and trying things, and really understand what's working for them and what's not. And that's how I keep up to date, and how I help companies who are trying to build or grow, when I'm making recommendations, or I'm helping them design solutions, or I'm, telling them, hey, you should use this product over this product, which happens on a fairly regular basis, so that I stay confident that I'm pointing people in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think one lesson that from what you just said, a takeaway for a merchant or an entrepreneur especially, is spend time working on your business, not just in your business. If you're caught up working for your business, in your business, then you're going to miss out on those bigger picture things that you have to pay attention to. Just like you said, pay attention to your shopping cart, pay attention to what behavior of your clients, listen to them. There's so many things that busy entrepreneurs miss out on because they're caught up in working for their business or in their business, however you want to describe that. If you had a nugget you could tell a merchant right now, what would you tell them? A bit of advice.
I mean, selfishly, I'm going to say you need to be evaluating fulfillment options and services on a daily, weekly, monthly basis based on trends you're seeing in the market, because it's going to become increasingly competitive and increasingly difficult to satisfy your customers' instant gratification requirements, especially coming out of the pandemic, where everybody sat on the couch and ordered stuff and had it delivered to their house. That is not going away. Like I never used Grubhub in 2018, in 2019, in 2020, until March of 2020, March 13th of 2020, all of a sudden Grubhub became a really important app on my phone. Right. And what's interesting is I'm in Austin, Texas, and this, we think it's over. So, as we've gone to restaurants and started to get back to our normal lives, on Friday night, if I want food, I still go to my Grubhub app. Like that hasn't changed. And so that the fulfillment expectations that existed prior to COVID and what exists now are favoring what Amazon was trying to do. And so if you're going to grow as a direct-to-consumer brand and get the kind of traction that you want, where you can start to reasonably offload some of your inventory to Amazon, and that's workable for you. But you're also retaining customers that come to your site and want to check out. You need to start figuring out what the best options are. And obviously you have to consider cost in that. So you've got to start looking at, what are cost-effective ways to get my product my products, my inventory close to the client, so I can get them there as fast and as accurately and as consistently as possible.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So as we close out, I always give people a chance to do a shameless plug about anything you'd like to plug.
Oh, I think I've plugged enough. I think that what I urge, so I love working with merchants, and I love the e-commerce space. I'm really looking forward to like shows starting up again and getting out and seeing like people like you, Brent, who the last time I saw you, I don't know if you remember this, you introduced me to a fantastic restaurant in Minneapolis, kind of Scandinavian cuisine. Getting out and seeing people again is going to be exciting. Ojai is going to emerge on its own momentum just because people are looking for solutions like the one that we offer. We're already having so many great conversations, and I'm very excited about, helping people figure out a very complex problem, and making it simple for them so that they can grow their businesses and be successful.
Excellent. Russell, it's been great talking today. This has been a super interesting conversation. And I guess I'm just going to go back and stress to merchants, check your fulfillment, check your your checkout process, re-examine all those things all the time. The costs are there, but you have to be aware of the psychology of the buyer, especially nowadays. And I would invite everybody to re-examine consistently and test consistently that process, and make sure that they're keeping up with what's happening today. Because like you said earlier, things change rapidly, things change dramatically in March of 2020, and we are going to be going into a new era as we all get back to somewhat normality. People are going to be used to some of those convenient in-home things that we've had to do, but somehow now have become quite nice to have, just like Grubhub.
Exactly. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.